you know, they're only having to drive that road once in a while, and we're having to drive it a lot. Um, so, and a lot of times you're driving in pretty dusty conditions. This is in Kuwait though, a little dust storm coming through. Hanging out with my bag. How well you're picking that up. And that's, you can see our rig, it's just a truck and a trailer that's, you know, what we tooled around in. Now what's interesting is I got to Baghdad, and the guy that was controlling when I was guarding that abandoned hospital, the guy that had taken that was from 3rd Infantry Division, a guy named Major Ahern. Let's see if I got a picture of him. He was a combat engineer, and his story is fairly interesting. So I'm in Baghdad. He comes around saying, you know, I'm the sheriff here. What are you guys about? Why are you here? What's your story? Whatever. And we get to the usual, where are you from? And he says, well, I'm from Oakland. I said, oh, really? I'm from Concord. And he goes, well, I'm from Concord too, but I just tell people Oakland because nobody knows where Concord is. And what high school did you go to? Clane Valley. Hey, I went to Clane Valley High School too. What year did you graduate? 82. Hey, I'm from the class of 82 also. Then it got real weird. We had the same date of birth. I mean, literally down the same date of birth. Now, he had gotten his GED and he left like his junior year, so I didn't, you know, I went to a big high school, so we didn't really know each other personally there, you know. But here's his little M113, and I don't know if you can see the Reptar doll that he tied onto it. That was their unit mascot, this doll, and its value had gone up. You know, every time somebody got a patch, like you get a Ranger patch by running 20 miles, well, somebody would put that doll in his backpack when he ran the 20 miles, and the doll would get the Ranger patch. So the airborne patch, you got to jump out of the plane 20 times. Well, that doll made the jump 20 times, had an airborne patch. So he was the mascot. And his value went way up because an RPG hit that track. And I wish I got the picture from the side, because it scraped the paint off the side of the M113 and bounced off without detonating. So then it's like all hail to the doll, you know. What was sad as I was reading, my buddy was reading the Chronicle one year, I think 2005, 2006, and I saw his picture on the front. And it was Bay Area War dead, so he's dead now. He got killed his second tour. But his story is pretty interesting in that I remember he was quoting that, you know, we won the war, but we're going to lose the peace, you know, that he was really concerned that everybody in the neighborhood had a job and had some form of income, because if they didn't, then they'd be tempted to take the $50 from the insurgents to blow things up. So he was kind of making sure, you know, the old guys swept the streets. He'd find, you know, a couple dollars to pay him and all this. And there was this widow with these 3 daughters who were nubile, jeans-wearing, red-haired, dyed, tank top, 19-year-old types. And so he got them jobs, you know, cleaning up the hospital we were guarding. Then a certain senator from Arizona who was a presidential candidate, who his dad was high up in the FBI in Arizona, sponsored the first Iraqi war bride over, which was his. He dumped his Wisconsin wife, converted to Islam, and married an Iraqi girl. So if you're a combat guy, that's like not cool usually. Most combat guys aren't politically very, you know, correct. So he had a lot of crap from that, but he eventually transferred to civil affairs, and that's how he got killed. He went back. Problem with civil affairs units is that by nature, when you're in civil affairs, the Iraqis, who you're working with, know where you're going to be and when you're going to be there. And so it's not a very great occupation, because a lot of times they know you go to this guy's house once a week and there's only a couple ways to go, and so they get ambushed a lot, I think. I don't know. And this is, I was trying to trade up. This is a BMT P2 of the Republican Guard that the Third Idea had captured there, taking it for a test drive. You see, the Hummer I was driving had vinyl doors, and we took them off because it was hot, and the vinyl doors didn't really protect you from bullets or stuff, so, you know. And then it's kind of funny, one of our battle captains was killed by IED. They just started doing the IEDs, I think, in July, June, and then they put the vinyl doors back on. And I still remember, it was in the morning, I was sitting in the shitter. I gotta tell you the conditions. It's basically a can of diesel fuel, okay, with a plywood board on tap. But we had, you know, been there for a while, so we had really made it great. It had corrugated iron sides, right? So the ID that went off a mile away just shook the hell out of the corrugated iron. It was that big of a blast. He got his arm blown off and bled out within minutes. This is my team and my Hummer. The 4 folks that started off. And what happened on the guard duty thing, the colonel came around and said, "How do you like it here?" And I was saying, "Well, what's the mission?" Because, like, again, you know, we weren't doing our combat stress mission. Another unit had Baghdad, and we were kind of just hanging out guarding this hospital. So they gave me, the commander formed my team again and sent us out on a mission to the 3rd ACR. That was the little badge. Cavalry Regiment, Brave Rifles got its name in a war you guys aren't taught about in school. It's called the Mexican-American War. It's a politically incorrect war. It's when Mexican was in the throes of the like a civil war following the war with Texas. They had exiled Santa Anna. He was kind of the strong guy, to Cuba. And this kind of has a parallel to Iraq, because when all these guys were banditos and war kings were causing trouble, Santa Anna said to the United States, "Hey, you know, you bring me back, I'll get things under control and I'll sign a peace treaty with you." So we brought him back, much like we created Saddam Hussein and supported him, you know. And the instant he stepped foot in Mexico City, he declared war on the U.S. So really brilliant move on that. However, much like the Iraq War, it's not very popular. This was even less popular. And what was interesting about the war was that future Civil War leaders, you know, Lee, Grant, they were lieutenants and captains at the time, and a lot of them were against the war. They were thinking we're beating a guy when it's just a land grab. We got places like California from that war, you know. It didn't last 10 years, though, but it didn't, even though they took the capital, they didn't surrender right away. And they had real supply problems because they were sitting there in Mexico City, but they had to have half their soldiers guarding the supply route to the Gulf of Mexico, or, I'm sorry, to the Caribbean, because, you know, they were bringing it up from Veracruz or whatever. Anyways, so going back to the unit, they got the Brave Rifles designation as they charged and took the wall at Mexico City. So that's their heritage goes all the way back. The cavalry units are almost all pure combat troops. They don't have any support. Like with 3rd ID, they had their own divisional mental health. So combat stress comes around, well, we got our own psychiatrists. We don't want to talk to you. So a lot of the guys weren't doing much that were serving these big units because they had their own mental health assets. Whereas the 3rd ACR was glad for anything because they didn't really have any assets, support assets. So they were very kind to us, kept us alive, fed us, watered us, kept us going. Like this ambulance they had was named God Bless John Wayne. That kind of tells you a little bit about their culture and what they were about. We got there, one of the first debriefings we did was a pretty bad one. Kid had died maybe 2 weeks before, and he was a driver of an M1 tank. And in Fallujah, or just, I want to say west of Fallujah, was a big base with a big ammo depot, lots of ammunition. And the local economy wasn't. There wasn't any economy, so they'd blow things up and then get the metal, you know. So the metal bits